Now the laws that we're talking about here, um, we have the law of creation. Each animal after its own kind, each plant after its own kind, a man and a woman, one each, in marriage, never to be divided, divorce and adultery forbidden, herbs were given for food, the seventh day Sabbath blessed and sanctified, set apart, making it all unchangeable until the end of time. And Elohim saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. This is where the homosexual, transsexual, transgender, the LGBT gets thrown into the lake of fire if they do not repent, because they are violating the law of creation. The animals don't even do what men do. And guess what? An oak tree brings forth an oak tree. Human beings bring forth human beings. And it is a man and a woman that bring forth a human being. A man and a man can't bring forth a human being. A woman and a woman can't bring forth a human being. A transgender and a whatever cannot bring forth a human being. Only a man and a woman. An XX and an XY can bring forth a human being. So understand, you violate this law of creation, you're going into the lake of fire if you do not repent and change your mind and change your ways. The law of animal for food. Now, this one doesn't, this law doesn't mean you have to eat meat. All right? If you want to be a vegetarian, be a vegetarian. It's not against Yahweh to be a vegetarian. If you don't want to eat unclean meat, don't eat unclean meat. It is not violating this law to not eat unclean meat. If you want to eat all things, eat all things. You are in perfect compliance to this law of Yahweh. And I need to do another one. I've got a study out there on the clean and unclean. But if you will please take your doctrine of men out of it and just listen to the word of Yahweh. Just listen to it. When they came out of the ark, because you hear, well, Moses knew you couldn't eat it, or Noah knew you couldn't eat an unclean animal. How did Noah know that? Well, he took clean and unclean into the ark. He only took 2 of the unclean and 7 of the clean. So he already knew you couldn't. No, how? You have to explain to me how he knew it. Where does the scripture say he knew it? He never ate animals until Genesis 9. He was in the ark. He took food into the ark for him and the animals. What did he take in? He took in herbs. He had no clue he was going to be eating these animals. He has no clue that this is taking place. And when he came out of the ark, what he did know is the clean and unclean were there for ceremonial, for sacrificial purposes. And if he had only taken 2 of the clean, we wouldn't have any clean animals left on this earth. Because when he came out of the ark, he took 1 of every single clean animal and he killed it for a sacrifice. Now it just records that Noah did this, but you have to keep in mind his sons are old. And so his sons are required to do this too. It may not be recorded, but it can be pretty much inferred that the sons did exactly what their father did. And so you've got 4 of those 8 clean animals already dead as soon as they came out of the ark. Every one of them. So it was for sacrificial reasons that they have the clean and unclean. That's what it was about back then, before this commandment was given. And what did he say? He said every every beast of the earth. Didn't say every clean beast. It didn't specify anything. And upon every fowl of the air, didn't say a clean fowl, every. And if you do a Hebrew word study and you do the Septuagint Greek word study, you can study this till you're blue in the face, and it will never say anything but every single creeping thing on this planet. And upon all that moves and creeps on the earth, and upon all the fish of the sea. You can never get anything out of this other than absolutely every single one of them. Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. And that is why the fear came upon them. And he specifically says it very clear. Even as the green herb have I given you all things. And so Noah, in his mind, he's going, I understand this. I have all the green herb. I have all this stuff here that I can eat. And now all living things are food for me. That is what was given when they came out of the ark. There's no separation here of clean and unclean. And now to even put the final stake into the ground on this. Okay, so if they were not to eat the unclean at this stage of the game here, do you think Yahweh would have been very specific? Hey, of every clean beast of the earth, and of every clean fowl of the air, and of and upon all the clean things that creep upon the earth, and upon all the clean fish of the sea, then Noah would have understood. Yeah, okay, yeah, I took in these clean. I know these are unclean. I know what I can eat. But he didn't do that. And then maybe he would have said, "But of the unclean you shall not eat." Right? That would have been a righteous way to do that from Yah. He would have been very clear. Now let me show you why what I'm saying about this is absolute fact. Every animal, clean and unclean, every fish, clean and unclean, was given for food. Because in the very next verses in Genesis 9, 4, and 5, we are instructed of something we cannot eat, and it holds true today, to right now. You cannot do this. And Yeshua didn't remove this requirement. Yeshua didn't do anything about this. You cannot do this. And boy, folks, you better not do it. And that is, but the flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, shall you not eat. And surely your blood of your life will I require at the hand of every beast, will I require it. At the hand of man, and at the hand of every man's brother will I require the life of a man. You will not eat the blood. It is the life. It is the life of men. In Germany, when I was over there, they had blood sausage, and people eat that kind of crap all the time. And I'm telling you, they have thrown their souls and they've jumped into the lake of fire. You cannot find redemption. You cannot escape the lake of fire if you're eating the blood. And Moses in Leviticus 7:26 and 7. However, you shall eat no manner of blood, whether it be of fowl or beast or in any of your dwellings. Whosoever eats any manner of blood, even that soul shall be cut off from his people. In this manner of blood, he's talking, fowl or beast. But I think in Acts that we get even a good, not a better, but a understanding about the manner. And this carries over because this was at the council in Jerusalem when they were writing to Gentiles in Acts 15:20. But that we write unto them that they abstain from pollution of idols. Get away from your idols, right? From fornication, of course, because fornication is part of the idol priesthoods and those kind of things, plus fornication, sex outside your marriage, before you're married, is lake of fire stuff. And then from things strangled and from blood. Why things strangled? Because you haven't drained the blood. It's one of those manner of bloods. If you eat something that's strangled, you're eating the blood. And you cannot eat the blood, folks. And that doesn't mean a nice rare steak. Oh, it's red. Oh, it looks like blood. It's got no. No. That's not what it means. It means you, when an animal is killed, you drain the blood. You don't strangle it to eat it. And then in Acts 15:29 again, they wrote the letter that you abstain from food offers to idols, from blood, and from things strangled, from fornication, from which if you keep yourselves, you will do well. Fare you well. Now, because they wrote this letter, they go, well, those are the only things that they have to do. We don't have to keep the 10 Commandments. Oh, give me a break. These things are stuff that are outside the 10 Commandments that we have to do. They're a part of the law of Yahweh. You cannot eat the blood. Just like you cannot be a homosexual, just like you cannot be a lesbian, just like you cannot have fornication, just like you cannot have bestiality, just like you cannot have GMO products. When you take the gene from one plant, a corn, and you put the gene of a bean in it, you have violated the law of Yahweh, and you're not going unpunished for that, folks. No, you think, oh, well, this is ridiculous. It's the law of creation. We have no right. We cannot change Yah's creation. Sorry, doesn't work that way, and it's a real frightful thing to find that out when it's too late. I'm telling you now, so you know it now. Understand it. Then we have the law of Yahweh, the 10 Commandments. This law was spoken by Yah, our Elohim, in Exodus 20, defining good and evil that was known from the fall at the beginning of creation when man gained the knowledge of good and evil. When man ate off of that tree of knowledge of good and evil, people go, well, they didn't know anything about it until God spoke it on the mountain. I'm sorry. So then you're denying the fact that when they ate of that tree, they really never had the knowledge of good and evil? They really didn't know what the 10 Commandments were. They really didn't know. You can't have another God. You can't have idols. You can't use his name in vain. You got to honor your father and mother. You can't commit adultery. You can't murder. You can't steal. You can't bear false witness. You can't covet. You don't think they knew those things? So you're denying what Yahweh told us. You're denying the fact that they knew these things. You're deceiving yourself if you're doing that. You have deceived yourself. They knew all of it. They were not ignorant. That why did Yahweh kick them out of the garden? He even told us, because they've become like one of us and they know good and evil. So these 10 commandments weren't anything new. Now they were new to these people coming out of Egypt, because the people coming out of Egypt were completely Egyptian. They were slaves. They were under the bondage. They were just like the rest of the world. They were like the rest of the world. Abraham is like the rest of the world. Until when he was called out, he was still like the rest of the world until he was circumcised. And that circumcision got lost in Egypt. They weren't even circumcised anymore. They had to be circumcised when they came out. All of that stuff was lost. That is why Yahweh had to speak the 10 Commandments. That is why he had to give it to them again. Because that knowledge was lost. They didn't understand. Men did not understand. The definition of sin in our very New Testament, now I say it that way because, I'm sorry, forgive me, can't go that direction. The definition of sin in our very New Testament is breaking the law. I cannot even begin to fathom in my mind how all the Christian denominations who profess that they are, well, I don't care about the ones that are apostate, but I'm talking about the ones that are actually preach against sin and preach against breaking the law. And because they read this, whoever commits sin transgresses also the law, for sin is the transgression of the law. And there is no interpretation of this passage. It is this. You can look it up in any way, word form you want to look it up. This is this passage. That is what it says. And so every Christian that reads the New Testament better read this, because sin is the transgression of the law. Every time sin is talked about, it's talking about the transgression of the law. Now, I'm going to hand this to you. What law? Obviously, the 10 Commandments. How about also the law of creation? How about also the law of not eating blood? How about that? Those three in particular. And it it is these 4 laws that are unchangeable. And I say 4 because you could say 3, because the eating of flesh is perfectly allowed, but it's also perfectly allowed not to eat flesh. It's just not a sin if you do. All right? It's not a transgression to do it. And so, yes, I will bring it. These 4 laws are unchangeable and cannot be transcended. So when you have an L&G White come out and tell you it is against the law to eat meat, you can't eat meat, and if you eat meat, then you're going to be like the beast that you ate, and all of that garbage, that's all a lie. That's all false doctrine, because we don't become what we eat. Simply doesn't happen that way. We eat to sustain our bodies, and that's all the food is for. It's to keep us going. Yeah, we enjoy it. Tastes good. But it does not affect the soul unless you eat not in faith. If you think you cannot eat unclean meat and that's a sin, then then don't do it. Do not do it. And you know what? If you don't, if you believe that, and I'm in your presence, I won't do it either, because I'm not going to put a stumbling block in front of you. But I will tell you that it is not a sin. I will do that. I will teach you that. If you don't receive it, that's fine. But Yahweh told you it was not a sin. And so if you want to say, well, Yahweh, you're wrong, it is a sin. You said this in Deuteronomy and so, or Leviticus, and so then I'm going to keep that one thing from Moses, because I think that's okay. Do do it. It's your faith, and so you're either going to eat unto Yahweh or you're not going to. So anyhow, but I'm going to bring it to you. I'm going to tell you it just like it is. That's the way it is. Because these four laws are unchangeable and cannot be transcended. They are there. They are there before the book of Moses. They are there before the book of the law. And just as Abraham was there, that book of the law cannot change these things that we just spoken of. And Ecclesiastes says, I know 3:14, I know that whatsoever the Elohim does, it shall be forever. Nothing can be put to it, nor anything taken from it. And Elohim does it that men should fear before him. That which has been is now, and that which is to be has already been. And Elohim, Yahweh, requires that which is past. When the children of Abraham, unto whom Yahweh promised the seed that should come, in other words, Yeshua, were delivered from Egypt, this gospel began to be preached unto them. The gospel of Yeshua, the gospel message is preached there. In Hebrews 4:1, let us therefore fear, unless a promise being left of us entering into his rest, any of you should seem to come short of it. For unto the Israelites was the gospel preached as well. I'm sorry, for unto us was the gospel preached as unto the Israelites. For the word preached did not profit them. Is it going to profit you? That's what you really got to ask you. Are you going to enter into his commandments? Are you going to enter into his rest, keep his Sabbath, keep his laws, and find peace for your soul? Or are you just going to fret about it day after day and break them and never find the peace? But the word preached did not profit them, not being mixed with faith in them that heard it. They did not believe. And that was the promise. The problem, they didn't believe, and they got thrown out of the land. So out of Egypt, this gospel came in the way of the law of the Levitical priesthood. It was the foreshadowing. It was the preaching of the Messiah to them. That is why they became a separated people. And that's what, until they were in the wilderness, until Yahweh was setting up the covenant with them, every man could sacrifice wherever he wanted, however he wanted, come to Yah however he wanted, if he wanted to come. It was possible. They ate whatever they wanted to eat. But when this Levitical priesthood was set in order, all of a sudden it became one door, one way, only one. There was no one could any longer sacrifice wherever they wanted to. They had to come to Israel. The same as today. You can't do whatever you want to do. You have to come to Yeshua. That is what happened. That is what took place here. You have to come to Yeshua, just like you had to come to Israel in order to find salvation, in order to speak with Yah, in order to have anything. Yah had nothing to do with people outside of Israel once Israel was established, once this covenant was established. That was the only door. And it was pointing to Yeshua. And now Yeshua is the only door. There is no other way to come to the Father. There is no other way to come to the Creator, to come to Elohim, than through Yeshua. Just like it was, there was no way the Gentile or the Goyim could come to Yahweh than through the Israelites. And coming to the temple, coming to those ways and doing those things. They couldn't bring their own things in. The Catholics can't bring in the heathen stuff and think they're getting by with it. The Protestants can't bring in the heathen stuff and think you're going to get by with it. It doesn't work that way. Now, the law of the Levitical priesthood in 2 Corinthians 3, 7 through 9, again, the administration of death, the administration of condemnation, could not bring life. It was a schoolmaster. Galatians 3:24, therefore the law was our schoolmaster to bring us to the Messiah, that we might be justified by faith. But after faith has come, we are no longer under a schoolmaster. All meant to be passing away, never intended to be permanent. The Levitical priesthood, the Levitical feasts were not permanent. They were a schoolmaster. And this is not talking about the Ten Commandments. What did the Ten Commandments ever teach you about salvation? They never said one word about sacrifice. They never said one word about the Messiah. If you just had the Ten Commandments, you would have no clue how to wash away your sin. You would know how to obey Yah, but you wouldn't know how to find redemption. So you can't say the law, the Ten Commandments, is our schoolmaster. That is a pure deception. It is a lie. Because it's not a schoolmaster to anything. It tells you good and evil. Because your minds, you have forgotten. You do not know what good and evil is. You need the Ten Commandments to know what good and evil is. You need the law of creation to know what good and evil is. You need Genesis 9 to know what good and evil is. Without those things, you don't know. Without that, you don't know you can't eat blood. It was all meant to be passing away and never intended to be made perfect. Schools are meant to be passed through and then done. You're done with them. Hebrews 8:13. In that he says a new covenant, he has made the first old. Now that which decays and waxes old is ready to vanish away. It's not the Ten Commandments, folks. That's not the covenant. Yeah, you hear him. It talks about a covenant, but there is an added covenant to the original covenant. And that was the book of the law. We all are living in a covenant of Yah. We are all supposed to obey. I mean, that's just a simple no-brainer. Obey him. Sorry about that. The Messiah fulfilled this with his life and ministry, and with our new covenant, this law of Levitical priesthood decayed and waxed old and vanished away. Hebrews 7:7, for if that first covenant had been faultless, there would no place have been sought for the second. If therefore perfection were by the Levitical priesthood, for under it the people received the law, what further need was there for another priest that should rise after the order of Melchizedek and not be called after the order of Aaron. In 7:17, for he testifies, you are a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. And in 8:1, now of the things which we have spoken, this is the sum. Okay, summing it all up here, folks. Let's put it down here on the bottom line. We have such an high priest who is set on the right hand of the throne of the majesty, or of Yahweh, of our Elohim in the heavens. And that's not a trinity, folks. I'm sorry. Yeshua is not the majesty. He is not. He is sitting beside him. A master, 2, a minister of the sanctuary and of the true tabernacle which Yahweh, the Elohim, the majesty, pitched, and not man. A new priesthood. And that priesthood is still administering the commandments of Yah, the 4 laws that we spoke of: the law of creation, the law of food, the law of blood, and the law that Yahweh spoke, the 10 commandments. He's still administering those. That is all. This priesthood is still administering that. And if you deny that, then you have deceived yourself and you're walking in deception and you're going to be thrown in the lake of fire. That bottom line. Fear Yahweh and keep his commandments. That is the whole duty of man. It doesn't say fear Yahweh and believe in Yeshua and that's the whole duty. That's not what it says. Yes, we believe in Yeshua. Yes, he is the Redeemer. He paid the ransom, but we have to obey.